Reem Ibrahim's here this morning. Very good morning to you. We just thought, let's just play clips of Keir Starmer and Gary Neville wandering about in the woods in the Lake District. Why?
Oh,
Nobody
God.
knows. You're just back from Tory Party conference.
I am.
And you've just told me you're full of the joys of spring. You thought it was great. You're the first person I've met who's actually said it was great. So tell us why.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, it's interesting. On the Sunday, I thought, God, this is really quiet.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, in the Midland Bar, as you know, there is sort of the hotel section, and there is the sort of convention centres part, and the bar is always normally rammed.
Yeah.
So when I arrived on the Sunday, I was really quite shocked, and I thought, oh my God, this is going to be a depressing few days. And I was speaking on 6 panels, so I was sort of thinking, oh well, you know, no one's going to show up, so it'll be fine. On the Monday morning, I spoke on a panel on young people. It was the Next Generation Tories, and it was packed full of young people that were really excited to be there. And then throughout the day, I sort of noticed that the room had sort of filled up. So maybe it was just people arrived late on the Sunday, I'm not sure. But it was genuinely, it had a bit more of a buzz to it. Now, don't get me wrong, it was absolutely quieter than in previous years. But people saying that it was completely empty, I mean, it's just totally untrue. And where you really notice where it was filling up is in the evenings, actually. People were excited, and look, I spoke to quite a few young people. I did some vox pops and spoke to people, and they said, yeah, things are pretty bad for the Conservative Party. We're sort of facing an existential threat, but I'm here to fight for it. And I sort of thought, well, you know what, fair enough.
So do you think it's a sort of salvageable exercise? Because a lot of people have said to me in recent weeks that, you know, the Tories are dead. They really, the party's gone. It's finished. They're never going to really be a power politically again in this nation, because what's really happened is that Reform hasn't kind of moved to the right. Reform have kind of replaced them, if you like.
Yes, and you know, the Reform have also accepted lots of former Tories, right, which I think is a telltale sign of that. I think that with Reform, it is still a one-man band. I mean, Farage is taken far more seriously. He is taken far more sort of mainstream in that way than he previously had been.
Right.
However, if Farage left, I'm not sure there would be much party infrastructure at Reform. Whereas the Conservative Party is the oldest political party in British history, and for that reason it has local associations, it has party infrastructure, which I know it sounds boring, but it does actually matter when it comes to fighting elections. So whether or not the Reform will actually be able to completely replace the Conservative Party, I'm in doubt of. I think that basically what's been happening on the continent will probably end up happening here. So a lot of the centre-right parties reduce in size significantly, and actually the more, what we've seen in more radical parties are actually taking up a majority of that. But in the UK, I think it's really interesting from a political realignment perspective. I think Reform are absorbing more of the communitarian, sort of more authoritarian Conservatives, those that genuinely are very, very anti-immigration, of course, but on other policies, but perhaps are a little bit more on the left. So, of course, Reform have said they want to lift the 2-child benefit cap. They say they want to spend more money, effectively, which, of course, would probably mean higher taxes on the wealthy. So it's interesting with Reform, whereas the Conservative Party can carve out a bit of a niche where they can be a bit more free market, perhaps a little bit more on the classical liberal side. Now, I'm not saying that's going to win them loads of votes, but it means that they'll probably end up specialising a little bit more in those two factions that have always naturally already been on the right.
Yes, and because the question really is that how much, you know, can they influence whatever the government is doing? We've seen Reform influencing the government, you know, immigration policy alone. They've managed to get the government to talk about deporting people on a pretty large scale. They've managed to get them to say that they're going to, you know, get rid of foreign prisoners in our jails, all of that stuff. Whereas, you know, when I hear kids, you know, Kemi Badenoch yesterday talking about getting rid of stamp duty, a great idea, because those of us who would like to buy a house would say, yes, let's get rid of stamp duty. But it sort of feels a bit irrelevant, is the problem.
I think the policy, I understand that, but I think the policies that Kemi Badenoch have come out with over the last week or so, even before conference, have been really, really quite impressive. I mean, let's talk about stamp duty for that reason. Stamp duty land tax is a tax on transactions, right? So every time somebody wants to buy a house, if it isn't their first home, they are going to have to pay a lump sum of money to the government. That is an enormous deterrent to moving homes. Now, the reason why this matters is because we already have a housing crisis. You know, we are already really quite constrained in the amount of supply of housing that we currently have. And so if you're an older couple and you're sort of got an empty nest now, your children have left and moved out, you are maybe going to want to downsize because you can free up some of the equity, have a bit more of a comfortable.
But why would you want to pay £30,000 in council tax?
Exactly, but when you're going to pay huge amounts of money in stamp duty, then it's going to be a huge deterrent for you to then move out. So what this does do, I think it's going to have a huge impact on pensioners, people that are a little bit older that maybe want to sell their homes and downsize, free up some of that money and be able to then use that money in order for them to have a more comfortable retirement. Those are the people that are really going to benefit. But also, those family homes, larger family homes, will be empty for younger families to then be able to move into. So it really is a win-win for everybody across the economy. I know we saw some very awful communists from the Mirror saying that this is only something that's going to benefit the wealthy, which is just completely untrue.
Right.
Anybody that understands how the market works knows the stamp duty gums up the market and hurts absolutely everybody.
And the way that Rachel Reeves has changed the stamp duty taxes at the moment has absolutely killed off the housing market. You know, everybody sold me. Everybody from estate agents to lawyers to just ordinary individuals say there is no housing market right now. It's literally just disappeared. Anyway, listen, Reem, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. See you again soon.